changed. It's much more aggressive and less thought out than it used to be.
One thing I would say is when your team is involved.
I like it.
To then deal with that. And there was one, I won't go into other live bursts that we presented in regards to STDs. That was not in the research that we were able to find.
Okay. I just was wondering, and certainly after hearing the Board of Health's national statistics.
I think the rate was less than 4 per 1,000 live births were teen live births.
Lipers?
Live birth.
Yeah, live births.
Live births.
Not pregnancies,
Live
live
I
births.
thought you were saying
I think lifers or
No,
something.
no, sorry.
So one area of commonality seems to be that condom availability in tandem with education can be effective. So what's your sense, and I'm not sure, Jay, whether you have the answer, maybe you do, but from the school standpoint, where do we need to be? What do we need to accomplish in order to set ourselves up to succeed?
So this is our second year of restarting the Team Pep program, which I think is one of our most effective methods. That is right now targeted and was last year at our freshman class. So we will have 2 grade levels that have had that targeted outreach. So we're not there, okay? If we want the whole school to get that kind of outreach, it would take 4 years of them fully being involved with Teen Pep and actually having that program before we could say, honestly, unless a kid transfers in, they've had Teen Pep or had some kind of exposure to Teen Pep and the outreaches that it does.
Can I clarify
Let me just, one quick follow-up. Is there discussion in health, in the health curriculum?
Yes.
And I'm talking, I guess I'm talking about earlier than 9th grade,
Right.
7th.
And so
especially 7th
I
and
can't
8th
speak
grade.
to the middle school health curriculum being as explicit in regards to how much they go into that. I know they do a little bit of it. And the health curriculum that's done, remember, it's only by quarter, okay? And so sophomore year, they get driver's ed, so they're not getting that kind of curriculum. Freshman year, they do get a little bit more of that, so the Team Pep reaching out to the freshmen through the biology or health classes and throughout the school year and phys ed gives them a much more concerted approach. Junior health gets a refresher of it, 1 quarter. Senior health primarily is dealing with long-term health planning in regards to mental health and your health decisions that you're making for the future. So it's not as focused on sexual behavior by the senior year because the understanding is they've gotten it in the junior year and they got it in the freshman year.
So if I could just jump in, as the head of the curriculum committee, in grade 11, the health curriculum in Unit 2, I'll read it. It analyzed factors that influence the choice, use, and effectiveness of safer sex methods and contraception, including risk reduction and risk elimination strategies. So that is already in the, it's in the grade 11 human sexuality unit that the objectives and the mastery is written in 9 different bullets. And so the 9th is students will analyze the effectiveness of prevention and treatment methods associated with STIs and how to access health information, products, and services available. So it's not a Teen Pep issue. It is baked into the recently rewritten and implemented health curriculum. So this is just grade 11, but this is, like Mr. Lassiter said, a refresher. So this has already been covered in earlier grades.
Thanks.
I agree. I think that is an area of commonality here, and I think it is really important to figure out how to integrate condom availability and into the curriculum. And, I think it seems like your existing curriculum is strong and has the right materials in it. Because we happen to live in a part of the country where these things are made by a New Jersey company, we can get them for free, and it can be integrated into the curriculum in a very positive way. But I think it is something that has to be planned and worked with the educators, to figure out, like, okay, how are you going to make this fit into the existing curriculum?
I have a question for Jay. So let him keep the mic. Has the Board of Health considered other places for distribution points, or was it always thinking the school was the best place to distribute? Or make available, not distribute, make available.
Right. So the school, condoms are available for purchase in the drugstores, and the schools are the largest. The public school is the largest concentration of adolescents in the town. So from a public health perspective, what we try to do is figure out how we can get the most good to the most people. And it's really important for us not to think about, like, how do we get all the good to everybody, because that's not how public health works. You try to get as much as you can out to as many people as you can in order to reduce harm.
I just wanted to say, Jennifer is not here. She does our teen PEP, but she did bring up in a meeting that, and this I think talks to the research that was already brought up, is that although the teens, we know that using the condoms would prevent transmitted diseases and pregnancy, that they're not using them. And she brought up is that most of the music by this generation is deterring them not to use it. It's not cool to use condoms anymore. So the education piece on our part is very important, because, is it that they're not available to them? I mean, we haven't seen the need. I mean, we're not hearing that from the students. It's not the availability of the condoms, it's the education that they should be using them. So that we're doing, and we continue to do that. So my question is, how do we know they're not using them just because they're not available? I mean, we have not seen that. I've not heard that from students. Our kids are always going to teen centers. I've spoken to kids with thinking that they had STDs or were concerned they all had a place to go. New Brunswick has a lot of places that are open to students. So we really haven't seen this need. So that's my concern, and that, that they should be available to, maybe to the zone or to the rec department, that, there's kids at other schools here in Highland Park that could have this access as well.
Jay, did you want, I'm sorry, Jay raised his hand. Do you mind if I let him speak?
No, not at all.
Just, from the Board of Health and public health perspective, so one of the things that's really important in terms of having a public health impact is the ability to affect the price of doing good or bad. So that's one of the reasons why we raise taxes on cigarettes, for example, because it's shown that if you increase the cost of doing something undesirable, fewer people will do it. And similarly, if you lower the cost of doing something desirable, more people will do it, which is why these programs consistently show that these availability programs actually do increase usage of condoms. Whether or not students are going to come to the nurse and tell them they need a condom and they can't afford it, I don't know exactly how that conversation would work. When I was in high school, it's not a conversation I would have initiated with the nurse, but
I can't imagine.
It's possible somebody would. So it's, I do think it's really important to embed this in an educational process and make sure that it's not just, throwing them out to the wind, but really instructing students, like, what's the proper way to use these, and that you should use them every time you have sex.
Could I let you respond, Michelle? She had raised her hand right before you.
Sure. So I just wanted to point out that there was some discussion in the original presentation that the students kind of went rogue and surveyed each other without permission from the administration. And I don't think that is actually against any sort of policy, as far as I can tell. Students can speak to each other about many different things, and it's not coming from the school administration, therefore students can survey each other. You know, at lunch they can ask, what's your favorite lunch? And I mean, that kind of thing.
No.
So as far as I can tell, though, the students that were involved in surveying were more likely to get honest information from other students than the school administration, which is, why I think it's important for students to, be allowed to speak freely to one another on issues that are embarrassing or possibly shameful. And I really don't want to discourage students from doing that. I think it's important for them to know that their, free conversation is valued, and that their information, through each other. This is like what we do with Sources of Strength. This is why we have the program Sources of Strength. You are not going to go to any adult to talk about this. And I know this because I have children. Like, they're good kids and we talk. But there are certain things that I don't anticipate being able to talk to them the same way as they would talk to their friends. And I think that's normal and healthy. So I just really don't want to discourage students from surveying each other, speaking to each other. I don't want that to come across in anything from any of the adults in the room. I think we need more of that, not less.
I agree. I mean, we want to encourage students to talk with one another. I'd ask that let's not get into whether the survey is legal or not legal. That's a whole nother conversation.
I don't know for sure.
But I know there's competing views about that. But let's, we definitely do want to encourage students to speak and to, speak with their teen pep mentors and their teachers and anybody they feel comfortable speaking with. That's really important.
But I do need students who are watching this video to recognize that what those kids did, and we loved them, but I don't think there's anybody in this room who had a problem with those kids personally. What they did was wrong. They used the school email account to distribute a survey that was a violation of the law. And in fact, I found out about this survey from a board member who will remain nameless. That's how I actually got to find out that this was actually happening on my end. We have to be really careful what platform kids are using to talk to each other. I have no objections, as Michelle's pointing out, to kids emailing each other, social media, each other.
Talking.
But they can't do it.
Yeah.
They're talking,
Yeah.
but they cannot leverage any school platform to do that
Okay.
unless they have permission from parents and guardians, as I pointed out.
So that's a great point. I don't want to have a whole discussion about the survey and who did what with the survey. And go ahead, Mike, please.
I did want to actually speak to students, actually speaking to students.
Thank you.
Because we have two students on the board here that are in Teen Pep.
Yes.
And I need the board to recognize and understand that when the teacher who taught Teen Pep for many, many years retired, the unfortunate situation was we couldn't start the program again with the existing faculty. They weren't trained, and we had already spread them to 6 sections.
Right.
So the Teen Pep program is a 6th section for our current phys ed teacher we hired, specifically because one of my criteria for finding a replacement for Ms. Schmo when she retired was to find someone that actually had Teen Pep background. And so Ms. Houseward, who came on board, has that background, and the Teen Pep program, which has always been a wonderful feature of our school, is about students talking with the students directly and being available then, because the students now trust them, to have conversations outside of the classroom regarding sexual issues. And so I don't ever ask them, hey, did anyone go and talk to you outside of class? That's for them to deal with because they've been trained to do that effectively. And we're fortunate that we have faculty in the Teen Center and our nurse's office that can have those conversations with the kids about these kinds of issues if they feel like they can trust them. Our concern is really about doing the program, if we were to do it, properly. And the one thing that I did see, and I want to just reiterate, in all the research was SBHC. Okay, to do this effectively, we don't have a school-based health clinic. We have a nurse's office with one nurse. The concern is, okay, if we're going to hand it to phys ed teachers to be involved with this during freshman health and junior health, where we do teach about this, are those teachers going to feel comfortable being the place where students would come for condoms? That's not confidential and easy if you're going to your teacher to pick up the condom. When we had them available readily and pass them out, what happened is every kid got 2 of them. The one year that Team Pep had condoms available, it was obviously, it didn't go well. It wasn't done properly.
My understanding is that some of the schools that do provide condoms around the country provide them through dispensers.
Right.
Right, and they have the dispensers in the health office. So I guess the question for Jay would be, the company that is providing the condoms, do they also have dispensers available?
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer. My guess is, we can certainly find out from the Board of Health perspective as part of your implementation process, but I think that would be a good way to go.
It also prevents some of the monkeying around with the condoms
Yes.
in the bowl.
Well,
that,
poking
seems
holes.
to
Right,
get-
yeah, none of these are loose. They're in packaging just like you would get them at the drugstore. So it's not like a bowl, they're in a box, just like everywhere, just like you always see them.
Right.
And, so they're as secure as they would be at the drugstore.
I guess Mr. Lassiter concerned that someone's going to go with a needle and be poking them through the boxes. I mean, I'm just asking. I'm not mocking.
To be quite honest, we don't know how they're packaged because
Well-
they're in a big pallet of.
Well,
I mean, I imagine that they will.
Actually, I know how they're packaged.
I imagine you could get in there with that needle if you were really crazy and bang the box, like you could at the drugstore, right? I'm not
Yeah,
super
or you
concerned
could
about
light
that
it on
happening.
fire, or-
but
I mean, there's all
right,
kinds of things
exactly.
you could
No.
do.
So they're not
But
individual,
I-
they're in packages, they're not individually.
They are not individual
Oh.
condoms. They are in packs of 3 in boxes, just like you find at the drugstore.
And
So
that's
be
how
different.
it's recommended that they be distributed in those original,
In their original packaging.
okay.
So it would be difficult to stab them inconspicuously, but not
Right.
impossible.
It would not, yeah.
Monique, could
But it sounds like there is a range of ways that
Yes.
schools have opted to distribute, right? 'Cause
Yeah,
I know that
that's
the
true.
nurse pointed out that they do have designated staff members who are comfortable, 2 or 3 in a building, so there are certainly models on both sides that we could look
Yes.
at if the.
Yes, there
And
are.
I think the
condom
research
distributor
actually
doesn't-
bore that out, right? It was like multiple locations, some discretion,
Yeah, right,
provided in
right.
some areas and others fine.
Making-
But a various list of locations, not just go sign your life away and let everyone see you.
And at least one of those sites being, or sort of resources being confidential and private,
Right.
like a dispenser,
like a.
for example,
Yeah.
where you wouldn't have to
No.
sign into Genesis for your condom pickup
Right.
Can I
appointment.
just ask a question? Mr. Lassiter, you referred to that this has happened in the past through the Teen Pep Program. Can you give us that background information?
It was part of the demonstration that was done, showing the students how to effectively put on a condom. There were enough condoms that in the place, or in the rooms and the times when they were presented, students were given some of the ones that were available. They were not boxed, 3 to a box. And to be quite honest, I'm so glad we're having a conversation about this, because that's the first that the school has been told, at least the administration or anyone here, that they were boxed 3 to a box. We don't know. I'm picturing a row of condoms where you have to separate them on the perforated edges, and they would be in a bowl. Okay, so we don't know exactly what the Board of Health would be able to provide. This conversation has to happen. And when they were provided, after the demonstration was done, I told you, it did not go well because this was done in the middle of the day, and so students had condoms throughout the building after these presentations. It wasn't done right by Team Pep a long time ago, and I'm sorry, I can't give you the exact years.
So, sure, go ahead.
So I think actually, okay, they're teens, that kind of stuff happens. And it's really, again, like this whole thing is an opportunity to have a conversation. And that is a really good opportunity to have a conversation and to make it clear that sexual health is not embarrassing or silly or funny, that this is a serious thing, and that, it's, people are goofing around and, okay, you're nervous about it and making balloon animals or whatever because you're nervous about it, but this is a real thing. And so it's very important for not just Team Pep to give that message, but for it to get into the curriculum and to be consistently given by all the adults who are involved in working with the teens to, just make this, it's just like, this is like part of being a human and they have to learn it. So, that's, and they will be silly and they will do crazy things because that's what they do.
Monique and then Ms. Asamoah, I think.
I just was going to point out the obvious. It clearly, as you pointed out, the program just wasn't implemented correctly and comprehensively. And so this is something that we've been, the recurring theme, right, tonight, that it has to be done comprehensively through education, well planned, have a designated point persons in the building. So I'm just making sure that I tie in all these pieces that I think we seem to be also agreeing on here. So that's all I wanted to say.
Ms. Asamoah?
Yes, I was going to say that,
one second, microphone, please. It doesn't come out very well on the video.
All right. I was just going to say that part of teaching sex ed is helping teens or young people to make informed decisions about their sexual health, and to do things that they feel works best for them. Mm-hmm. And I think that in this case, we've kind of taken that power away from them. And also, no matter what we decide to do here, I think not giving them the proper education that they need, certain skills like negotiating skills, refusal skills, and also if they feel that they need a condom, the availability of these things. I don't think, and I could be totally wrong here because I'm not a health teacher, but I certainly work with Team Pep, and in my previous life, I was a health educator.
Oh.
Yes, so it's very important that, that we educate these young people, because we could give them the condoms, right? We could pass them out. It could be free. But if both parties that are engaging in this activity are not agreeing on whether they're going to use it or not, it will not work. So teaching them other skills first before handing them these things, I think is more important than just making condoms available.
Well, you'll be happy to know that the curriculum committee talks.
Is that
we
what we're
talk
doing?
about this all the time, and we're trying to push for the idea of consent to be included in our Irving curriculum. So as early as preschool and kindergarten, you should know that your body belongs to you, that no one is allowed to touch you without your permission. That is the idea of consent. So that should, by high school, be something ingrained in students and should be a part of their DNA. As far as the curriculum committee is concerned, we talk about that a lot.
We've talked about that a lot.
I'm happy to say that our current curriculum does cover that in different ways from Bartle onward. We're still, I think, trying to get that included in Irving, but it does show a lot of talk about communication skills and other things that are integral to healthy relationships. Oh yeah, do you have the microphone?
And I'm so glad to hear that. But I think that is the more reason why we need to go a bit slow on this, because it hasn't really caught up with most of our students. And I know this. And so I think it has to go hand in hand. And maybe we can provide one part because that's the easiest part to provide. But the second part is, the students just accepting this and making it a part of their everyday life and really believing that, they're in charge of their sexual health. And so they can say yes or no, and if the other partner is not willing to use a condom or they don't have accessibility to it, then they can say, I am not ready to engage. But I think until that happens, giving them condoms, or we can even train them on how to put it on. We have the 10 or 12 steps. They can know all that, but if they don't know how to say you should use this, or vice versa, it becomes a problem. So I think maybe we need to slow down and allow the students to catch on before we start.
Do you think that they will stop having sex until we have those conversations?
No, that's not going to start.
So that's why there's a certain harm reduction logic here. Yes, we want them to be perfectly educated, but
yes,
in the meantime, I don't know. I'm just
yes.
Could I just say something to that?
I agree, but but I think that there has to be. We have to do more on our.
Oh,
end.
of course. Yes, that's very
So
important.
I think
Chris, did you?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to read the official policy of the Society for Adolescent Health and Medicine. Just to give a frame of reference for the debate, so the position statement is that the Society for Adolescent Health and Medicine supports the following positions. Condoms should be available to students free of cost at secondary schools. They should be available in unobtrusive locations, and it's recommended that condom availability programs be accompanied by education and skills training. However, inability to provide education should not preclude making condoms available. Wow. So, I guess my question for the sort of the Go Slow camp is, I'd like to see the district have a policy which is compatible with, major medical association advice. And, if, I'm not sure if this is the only policy statement by the major medical associations. Are you aware of a different policy statement that has a different policy?
I'm not aware of that, but having worked in other school districts, and having worked with, different health education programs and things like that, it's always been that we do the education piece first. And then, in other communities, they have Planned Parenthood or other resources in their community where the kids can access. And so if the school wasn't providing it, which, like I said, I didn't know any school that provides it, but there were other resources in the community, and so we worked hand in hand with them. And that worked very well. I was the pregnancy prevention coordinator for a school district, and so my job in the district was to prevent teen pregnancy. And so I did this from middle school to high school. And I think that having those things in place was very helpful.
Do you, where is the nearest Planned Parenthood to us? There's not one in Highland Park,
There's
right?
There's one in New Brunswick.
Is it close to the train? I mean, is it hard to get to?
It's close to the high school there.
Yeah,
It's close to the high school.
Yes.
So you have to take the bus, probably, right?
Yes.
You're not just going to walk down there, or that bus comes once every hour, I think, down Raritan Ave.
Yeah.
That
There's
803 or the 814. There may be two buses, but I think I've looked at the schedule before, and I think they come once an hour typically. That just is what it is.
Do we have a copy anywhere of the Teen Pep curriculum?
Oh, Scott, yeah, could we see a copy?
I'll dig something up and provide it to you.
Does our
Do
student
you
have
know,
it?
Ms. Esma, if we have a package
Just
program?
from like a Teen Pep educator perspective,
Thank you.
I love Teen Pep. This is my second year doing it, and I'm all for like normalizing the conversation about sex, because at this rate, everybody is having it. And what we're really focusing on this year is, like consent is key, and like that's what our shirts say. But there's only 8 of us this year, no matter how hard we advertise for a great program it is. And it's like a lot on our plate, even though it's extremely important, it's a lot on our plate, to install this. And I think that also has to go into consideration.
Well, I think this program would not be on Teen Pep to manage. No, of course not.
Yeah.
But I hear what you're saying. You're already stressed to the.
It does sound like that, though. The way that we're talking about it, it sounds like we're leaning heavily on Teen Pep, which is why I brought up the curriculum.
Yes, that's right.
It is baked into the curriculum.
Scott, did you want to? Let's let Scott say something. He hasn't said something for a while.
Michelle's,
And then we'll go to Jay responding to.
I've got to
6
be very
questions ago.
frank with the board and the community, and I think members of the curriculum committee are aware of this. It's been a great challenge since I've gotten here for me to rebuild the family life and sex education program for a couple of reasons. One, I am the supervisor. We don't have I could task one of our supervisors to be responsible, but they've already got a lot on their plate. So I haven't been able to dedicate the time it probably deserves, and what time I have been able to dedicate doesn't seem to have been very effective. I think our PE staff is taxed between teaching health and teaching PE. To be frank with you, I would love to dedicate a single position, similar to what you were mentioning to me, Mike, out loud. We've got the SB something or other along those lines. Something along those lines, even if it was a part-time position, would be extremely helpful to support my efforts. I'm being very cognizant of the reality that we don't have a very, very strong family life and sex ed program, but I don't know how we're going to build it up. I really don't. It's a tough one.
That's true, and I think that's where Chris's point comes in. Was that the Society for Adolescent Medicine? Did I get the name?
That's the Society for, yes, Adolescent Health and Medicine.
Adolescent Health and Medicine. I mean, their point being that it's a risk reduction thing. Not everybody can like provide the education that we'd want to. But according to them, we should at least take the risk reduction strategy of providing the material. So Jay, do you want to respond to?
So Ruth had asked about the curriculum for Teen Pep, and there's a website that lays out all the principles of Teen Pep.
Oh, great.
And all the training materials are there as well.
Thank you.
And I did want to ask, like, if the health curriculum is not being completed, this is the first that I'm hearing about it.
That is absolutely not the case. It's being completed by the teachers, but they get it freshman year, 1 quarter, they get it reiterated junior year, 1 quarter, as one of the units during that quarter. So you're talking about most likely 2 to 3 weeks freshman year, 2 to 3 weeks junior year, okay, along with the other aspects of the curriculum that they do in a 10-week quarter. Along with now, we've brought back Teen Pep that can reach back out to the freshmen at multiple outreaches, and please correct me if I'm wrong, between 6 to 8 per year. Is that right?
Yeah, we did close to 2 sessions a month last year. Then this year we're now down to about 6 sessions.
You guys are really busy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and so it's not a matter of
Yeah, exactly.
it's not a matter of no education. They're obviously getting some kind of education on it. Is it enough? Is it effective? Is it helping to actually teach the message? And going back to, okay, we don't do enough of the education, but we should still make them available. The question still remains, where, how,
of course,
and under what circumstances would that happen within our building? We can only identify from our understanding, maybe someone else could help, one place we could do this effectively.
I think it's an excellent opportunity for the Board of Education to refine a policy to give you those guidelines. We're looking at like Philadelphia Public Schools, which started this program this month, Rochester High Schools, which started it about 6 or 7 years ago, which have guidelines for how it's been implemented. I think we can look at those and look at how we would want to do it here. We have the opportunity where the Board of Health has the condoms available to give to the schools, and we can look at how we could best do that in this district here. Because if we're not doing it this year, I think it's something that we should have already have done, and it has the potential for something that we could do in the immediate future.
And so I just caution the board and ask, if we do this with the regulations to help guide us, when you're looking at major cities with more resources, I don't know if that's going to be the best model to look at in regards to our small school and our limited staff.
No, certainly they have different challenges, yeah. We would never like just adopt something wholesale from Rochester or Philadelphia, but that's a place we could start perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, they have some very clear and simple guidelines, which I think would have some applicability here to a similar sort of a program. But we can look at it, and then I certainly appreciate everything that you put together in your research for the constraints that we would have in this district.
Yeah, that's really interesting to know. I hadn't realized sort of how difficult it would be from a staffing perspective. I do want to let our administrators go, and Jay too, if he is so inclined. This is something we'll be working on in policy committee, and I think probably curriculum will want to discuss this as well. Am I missing anybody? Curriculum, policy? I think we probably would write a policy or a regulation that provided for the condoms to be provided to us for free.
Well, one thing we haven't touched on is the equity issue, and we touched on it a bit in some of the presentations, but I certainly think that is part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
In certain populations not having the same access as others, so I would want that to be a part of the conversation.
So let's all of our committees, maybe finance could be accepted because we're going to try to make this work on a donation basis.
Right, absolutely, because some of the aspects that I've seen in some of the districts where they have done it is there is a component that's tied to curriculum.
Yes.
Where they have to have gone to a class before they could be a participant in receiving. So, it's kind of like, all right, it was open to all students, but they had to finish at least one of the health classes before the student section.
Did they show their little card that says they took?
Yeah.
I know, I hear you. I mean, that's what we would like to do.
Right.
It's just so hard with confidentiality, right? so hard. Okay, let's.
Anyway, if I could just,
okay.
The only thing that I want to say is, in the end, if we ultimately do move forward, I would hope that we can all work together to craft something that is most workable.
Yes.
And that will take everybody's views in mind and discuss. And then we have to decide. I mean, ultimately, we have to decide.
But clearly, we can't do it without having listened to what you said about staffing in particular.
Correct.
So this is not going to be something where the board sits down and writes a policy and says, there you go. You know, obviously. I mean, I know that, oh boy, that's embarrassing. I'll deal with it later. Just everybody look away.
On this note, I'm going to let these guys go.
I just wanted to say, I know that our board is sometimes, I'll get some, seen as, we like to write policies and we like to tell people what to do. We try to reach out to our administrators and our faculty, so we will continue trying to do that. Thank you so much for coming, everybody, really. Let's take a 5-minute recess for me to clean my coffee.
I was afraid of that mug sitting there.
What happened to your tumbler that doesn't spill? Sorry. She had me east end. I'll be here.
Where's everybody going?
Thank you. She's going to get recess.
I love recess.
She's got to clean up. Was not so thrilled about the whole thing. You're okay. Yeah, you're okay. His presentation was totally, yeah. I mean, I'm totally.
Yeah.
Are you?
I mean, I'm ready to test this.
Oh my God, yeah.
I was horrified, mortified.
You can't pause it? Oh my God. You can't pause it? Press pause?
I said to my husband, I said, I don't even know how to have this conversation with my
Thank you so much.
So they're watching me right now?
Yes, it was, yeah.
Oh, stop it.
I don't think it's that absorbent.
We got like 100 more of those.
I'll take care of your computer.
I think that the way that you did it was perfect. Yeah. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, like I was not feeling so in favor of it until I heard what you had to say. It's fully. I said, luckily it didn't hit the papers. Well, maybe you'll see a little bit.
Yeah. Not much. Yeah. I'm like, I'm telling you, I'm going to text my own boys. I'm like, okay, please, let's just make sure you are keeping yourself safe. So you're starting on.
I don't know.
It sounds a little bit stuffy.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
What?
It's nothing.
Yeah, I'm just tired.
Oh, that doesn't help.
Typically, I don't think you tell right by my chair. You know,
I just noticed it now. It wasn't like ready for.
Oh, Michelle, thank you. You're very kind. All right, I will wash that down later.
Yeah, he took your computer.
Wow. Yeah, comfortable enough to have that conversation. Yeah, I don't know if I could do it. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Nice break in the middle. Yes. All right. Did I get you? Oh, just a matter. It's no big deal. It smells delicious. Is that French vanilla? Hazelnut.
Please, God.
Yeah, but I have another copy. Yeah? All right.
Look at the notes. They look so good.
It looks so old-timey.
It looks so old-timey. All right, Mr. Roslevich is on his way back. Give it one more minute.
Okay, we have to go through the whole agenda.
I know. Let's try to go as.
I'll be super brief, I can tell you.
Yeah, let's. I know this went on a long time. I meant to have it end by 8:30, and that didn't happen. It was a good discussion, though. Roslevich. Let's get started.
Yeah,
we can bring him up to date.
Yes.
All right, so okay, curriculum. Could we have your curriculum report, please, Michelle? This is a workshop meeting. We won't be voting. We'll have another opportunity to discuss these items next week. No, 2 weeks from now.
I am very grateful for that, and I'll tell you why. We had a tough time getting together for our curriculum committee meeting. So, as you can see on the agenda, there's a couple of different things. There's the regular field trip requests. There's the resolution for the 2021 school calendar, which I would love for the students to study up on and give us feedback.
Do they have access to the drive, Michelle? Do you guys have access to our board drive? No. There's confidential stuff.
So the calendar, though, can we get their feedback?
Calendar's an attachment.
An attachment to?
So it should be in here then, in the packet.
Oh, it's in the attachments.
Yeah.
If you guys wouldn't mind taking a look at it and just at some point, whenever, and
yeah,
letting us know. No, May 3rd is a terrible day for us to be off because everybody knows that's the high school, whatever.
We hear from parents about oh, it's a half day again.
So if you see anything in the next 2 weeks before the meeting, just shoot a message to Scott, please. Thank you. You guys can, of course, leave whenever you want, by the way.
Yes.
Feel free, but we also would love you to stay.
Number 4 is the regular resolution to approve the HIB incident report. This is for the month of December, and there's 5 different items there. Number 5 is a resolution to approve a new course, AP Physics, and that's including mechanics. It's more practical physics, I believe, like hands-on. Number 6 is the resolution to approve the following university graduate student for teaching internship, junior practicum observation. That's for Bartle and middle school. And number 7 is staff attending a Math 6+ curriculum meeting in the central office. And that's it. That's my report. If there's anything that I missed, Scott, please feel free to chime in there, because I know.
I'm going to be having Dr. Nicosia make a presentation more about science at the next curriculum meeting, which I think is March 11th.
I think so.
Something like that. I know there were questions from the board about the high school plan, the trajectory for that, so we'll report out on that. I did send an email on January the 28th about the AP Physics program. Are there any questions about this proposal?
And am I right, the upshot was that it would cover both calculus requiring physics and non-calculus requiring physics in the same classroom. So no one will be barred from taking.
Similar to the way we're handling the honors with distinction programs, we would differentiate for the 2 groups of students.
We'd love to hear more about that, how that goes when it.
Yeah.
That starts next year, correct?
We'll report out on the AP scores as well, for what it's worth, see if there's any impact.
Chris, did you?
Well, I was just going to thank Scott. I noticed that the new calendar is in the draft.
Nobody's brought that up.
And I appreciate the change in signage. For those of us that can't see clearly in the morning before we've had 5 cups of coffee.
That was your recommendation,
That was
wasn't it?
Chris, yeah.
Yes, we can thank Ms. Baudato for that. A couple of highlights to the calendar. We're recognizing the Chinese New Year next year, pending board approval. Good. Reverting to a plan we had 2 years ago, which was to have staff come in for professional development, but not have students come in that day. One other highlight of note, this calendar proposes that we not have school for faculty and students on Election Day.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
I didn't realize it would be that well received, but okay.
Yeah, absolutely, oh my gosh.
Nationwide holiday, that's always my belief, since, I just don't understand why we have to go to work that day.
I mean, for our teachers who commute, it's almost impossible.
That's the same week as the NJEA teacher convention, so I think that's always been an issue. So New Brunswick has off election, they basically have off
the whole week. I know
that's
some
an
districts
issue.
do that.
That's where parents start to get, this is a little too many days off.
The Jewish holidays don't fall on all weekdays like they did this past year, so we save a little there. And just a heads up, the faculty has seen this, not all faculty, but their representatives. So that includes the HPEA building leaders, and of course the leadership team. So I'm just waiting for the board to give me the okay, and if so, we'll put it on the next agenda for approval.
Wonderful. All right. Yeah, let's put it on the next agenda, and we'll.
Yeah.
Anybody who has a concern, obviously, let Scott know, please, before the 24th, which is our next meeting. Sounds good. Wonderful. Are there any other comments or questions about the curriculum items? No. Okay. Finance and facilities. Mark is not here. Scott, did you?
I can handle
Oh,
that.
you. Rob is. Okay. I'm sorry.
I can.
You absolutely could. I'm sorry. I
could,
didn't.
if you would like me to.
Please do. I should have turned to you first,
Right.
to a committee member first.
We actually did not meet. Normally, we would meet the evening before a workshop, but not tonight. Mark is out of town, and we do have a few meetings upcoming.
Just a few.
Right.
Budget
So,
stuff,
the budget process begins for the board committee next week. It's already underway, well into swing, right, Scott, with you and your staff. But in terms of our work begins, I guess, next Tuesday,
Yep,
Tuesday
night.
the 18th. And we have 2 meetings next week, and then just kind of rolling it out from there. So we did not meet, but we do have a number of items, and I'll just roll through those. Numbers 1 through 6 are the standard bill lists. That would be athletic bill list, the cafeteria bill list, et cetera. Treasurer of school monies is number 3, and other standard reporting. Number 7 is the travel expense report. Number 8 is our professional services. This is we have a substitute school nurse. And that's number 8. Number 9, bedside instruction for several students. Number 10 is a $2,000 grant for the high school rocket propulsion lab.
Cool.
Pretty exciting. You familiar with that?
Well, somewhat, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Do you want to describe
I
it?
don't have enough to share.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay. All right. I mean, it sounds pretty cool. So maybe in a couple of weeks, when we get together next,
Maybe Mr.
we
Marks
can hear about it.
tell
Yeah,
us about
I think that would be very cool.
Oh, that'd be great. Do you think Mr. Marks would be willing to come and share a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be great.
That'd be
Yeah.
fantastic.
Okay.
That sounds really
I'll
fun.
have to do that.
Thank you.
Number 11 is a donation from Starbucks for the high school
great.
drama club. Wow.
For
Thank
Tech
you.
Week.
That's
Give
great.
that coffee, stay awake, and
In
play
the amount of
cards.
$580.80,
That is very nice.
That's
very
really
cool.
nice.
right?
As a former tech mom, I appreciate that.
That's
Numbers
great.
12 and 13 are, number 12 is approving or accepting quotes for the purchase of 16 two-way radios. These are for use during emergency drills at the schools. And then number 13 is the resolution to approve the purchase of those two-way radios. Number 14 and 15, these are basically pass-throughs, non-public school technology aid purchases, 14 and 15. And number 16 is a 5-year contract for the phone system replacement. And that will include a 911 inform system.
I can expand on that. That I know much about.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was
Let's hear about
privy
that.
to the research. The phone system will actually add safety features that we've been looking for, including the ability to broadcast a message to all classrooms with one call from a main central location. And we're also going to be replacing Honeywell, which is, my fave way of communicating, with this system. They have its own. So be on the lookout, starting in September.
Is that $4,631 a month for the whole 60 months?
Which number?
For almost $5,000 charge per month. I was
Oh,
asking
correct.
if it
But
was for
that
the whole
is-
60-month period of the
That is,
contract.
but you can speak to
Yeah,
whatever
that's actually
saving.
less than what we're paying now.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But now remember, this is the entire phone system. They're going to replace all the equipment. And then we do get some safety features. We'll end up also saving on Honeywell. I believe that's about a $5,000 annual cost that we're not going to incur. any
What are you
longer.
going to do?
That's right. Yeah. Well,
You'll survive.
Yell really loudly.
I'm actually going to be able to project a hologram into people's homes with this system.
Right, during dinner, perfect.
Yeah. A la Star Wars.
Anyway, that's it.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have questions about finance? All right, moving on, personnel. I'm trying to reform and get you guys personnel minutes more frequently than almost never. So those are in, where are they? I shared them with y'all somewhere. Maybe they're in tonight's folder. You should have gotten a notification. A lot of times the personnel report has a lot of confidential stuff, so I don't always put together minutes. We did meet on the 3rd. We talked about our 2 open positions, or our 2 primary open positions. We have an LDTC position open, which is currently being covered by a contractor with whom I think we're very satisfied, until we find someone. And the school nurse position at Irving is vacant. And we do have a BIATA contracted nurse there who was recently at Bartle, and everybody was very pleased with her. So those positions are staffed, but we are looking for permanent hires. We talked about a number of other things, some confidential, which are available on my minutes. Okay, the agenda items, let's see, it's mostly pro forma stuff that we do every time, source for teachers, leave of absence, the stipend for Ms. Luxa, number 4, that is for when she will be helping out in a quasi-assistant principal capacity.
Correct, for approximately 5 weeks.
5 weeks. She'll be assisting the principal during the period before our new assistant principal comes on, while our current middle school principal is out on leave.
Right.
So we appreciate that, Ms. Luxa. A volunteer technology student approved, that we are going to approve, I hope. Thank you, Andrew Dalton. Let's see, appointment of a leave replacement teacher, ESL, job coach, number 8, staff PD. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, staff PD, number 9. This is exciting. This, the Irving Primary School After School SEL Steamteam program, which I don't know if Scott wants to speak to it more.
I'll just say a few words.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, this is exciting.
Yeah, so we have Title I funds that we're diverting to this program. And it's essentially going to be open to all those kids after school who need a place to go at that level. It'll also include the aftercare students. So, and it is going to integrate, as its title reflects, interpersonal skill development, empathy, confidence building with some core academic work.
That's fantastic. All right, and so will that be offered to after-school students as a matter of course? If you're in after-school?
Yes.
Okay, it'll just be part of the after-school program. Huh, it looks like part of my agenda did not print out. Michelle, may I borrow your agenda?
Of course.
Please. I printed it out at home, and that was my mistake. Let's see. All right, here we go. Personnel, thank you so much. Okay, so there's a number of teachers approved for hours doing after-school SEL STEAM team work. Paraprofessionals, and that's it. Does anybody have any questions about personnel? We'll have a chance to discuss all this stuff in greater detail at the next meeting if folks are interested. Policy and regulation. Michelle, do you mind if I just say it?
No, fine.
Or would you like to say it, Michelle?
I mean, I can read it.
Yeah, go ahead and read it. Mark is our policy chair. He is not here tonight.
Right. So the policy committee report is basically that there are 3 policies for us to read. Second reading, this is for policy 1110, organizational chart, which is found in your secondary packet and here. Then there's 2423, bilingual and ESL education, and 5530, which is a regulation, not a policy, but it is about substance abuse and it is mandatory policy. So I don't know if these are really significantly different than they were, but I know that there are a few changes. So if you have any questions.
I believe that.
One comment.
Yes.
Sorry, late breaking comment. So Kaya Schlesinger, who was our de facto ESL supervisor, even though she's not, she has requested that we table 2423 so that the next meeting you'll see it cross out because it, by the way, the only change we made, as Michelle alluded to, is like some language changes, minor language changes, nothing to change the content necessarily. But she's getting some clarification about what could be a contradiction between state code 18A and federal guidelines.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so she's going to get back to us.
Well, thank you, Kaya, for bringing that to our attention. Appreciate it. Okay, so A and C will be on, right, Michelle? Yes. Okay. And we've already considered these once. These will be on for second reading, AKA adoption at the next meeting. Does anybody have policy questions or comments? No. Okay. Monique, Equity and Excellence, would you present, please?
So we did meet this evening before our board meeting, so I will just try to get through these notes. Our first item of discussion is around our efforts around minority staff recruitment and retention and concerns in that area. Scott brought us a nice comprehensive overview of, or comparison I should say, of student to staff demographic data, and staff including all staff, teachers, support staff. Unsurprising findings in many respects, disproportionately low numbers of Asian, Black, and Latino staff relative to the distribution of our students demographically. And I think the highlights would be staff versus student percentages of, in the Latino category, we have 0.9% of our, under 1% of our staff being classified as Latino. And our student population is 23% Latino. Our Asian staff population is at 3%, close to 4%, and the student body is at 21%. Black staff, close to 9%, and that's probably the closest group in terms of the comparisons. The student population there is close to 10%. So, and there are some other categories that were included here. Our Pacific population, where the numbers of staff happen to be actually a little higher than the percentage of students. I should say percentage, not numbers. And in the multiple race category, we actually have more staff who designated as multiple race relative to the student body. So, this conversation again just highlighted the importance of what we already know in terms of trying to figure out more ways to boost the recruitment and retention of our, especially in some of our marginalized populations. And as we can see, the Latino population is one area we really want to look at a little bit more proactively, or targeted, I should say, and specifically. Yeah. So we talked about some strategies for doing that, looking at some associations from the different colleges, fraternities and sororities. Oh, great. So Scott's certainly, encouraged by this data to start to really look at that area even more specifically. Then we looked at discipline data, comparing September to January disciplined out of school and in-school suspension data of last year to this year, September to January data. So cumulative numbers we're looking at here. Overall, in-school and out-of-school suspension numbers are actually considerably down compared to last year. Last year, the overall numbers were 99 total between September to January. This year, it's 79.
That's great.
Breaking that down a little further, out-of-school suspensions last year, during that time period, were at 27, and this year they're at 12. ISS, 72 during last year at this time, this year 67. Importantly, we noted that the suspension numbers are going down among our core kind of marginalized groups that typically have the higher numbers there, Black, Latino, and special education students. Precipitous drops in the number of Black students being suspended in both categories, ISS and OSS, from 37 last year this time to 17 this year. And what we also talked about importantly is that we don't only have the numbers to show that there's some positive changes, but Scott has also received some feedback from staff and students in the building, specifically his superintendent student cabinet, noting that the vibe in the building, and I think this is more so in the high school, I assume you're talking,
Correct.
Right? Has been more chill, as the kids would say, and some of the staff saying, just feeling that things are a little bit calmer, quieter, safer this time relative to this time last year. So we were obviously very happy to hear that. Of course, we still have our issues and challenges. No one is denying that. there is certainly a concern about an uptick in HIB incidents, mostly related to race, and that is really across all the schools, starting as young as our Bartle age students. So we, went from looking at the good news in terms of our discipline data to looking at the uptick in HIB incidents and the serious nature of the uptick. So the administration and the board are clearly aware and keeping tabs on this and are deeply concerned, and we're taking this seriously. Scott was able to report out some of the current responses in place to some of these incidents when they do occur, and that includes our counseling support, and when necessary, disciplinary actions when that's determined to be effective. A long-term effort that Scott reported out is that he's been in talks with Elizabeth Riley Williams of the American Council on Diversity, and they have resolved to really work on a curricula-specific content dealing with hate and biased language, starting with the young kids learning like the history of some of the kind of racial epithets and anti-Semitic epithets that seem to get thrown around, I think, fairly loosely among children these days. And we're seeing it in our schools. So we're talking about education. This is what we're really trying to address it from an educational standpoint. And also giving, I think, students the history and the background that they may not be getting elsewhere. Now, I'm just giving you an overview. At the February 24th meeting, Dr. Taylor will be making a full presentation on the cumulative sort of HIB data, HIB data, and HIB. I was thinking of our content news conversation.
So many. It's late.
HIB, our HIB incidents. And so he'll pair that with some of the anecdotal data. Scott, I think you said that, and some qualitative data with actual sort of snippets of narratives of what we're seeing in our schools and how we're going to try to tackle this serious concern we have.
Great, thank you. Did anybody have questions? That's fantastic to hear, the good news part of that.
Yeah.
Scott, I hope that the curricular component can have some amount of, can refer in some aspect, in some aspect of it could focus on disability inclusion. In other words, not only do we have, our share of racial and religious epithets being tossed around, but certainly the district has always had a problem, as do so many schools, with the R word. And
that's a great point. And on top, and as well, focus on words that kids use that are demeaning to those of certain sexual orientation.
Yeah, absolutely.
The F word. Yeah, echo. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, but you did say that the American Council on Diversity focuses more so on race.
Race,
so that
correct.
may not be a part of their role. But
that would not be correct.
Right, but we would certainly take the onus of
I have a conference call with ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, on Wednesday. I'm hoping to pick their brain about this effort. I don't know if it's rocket science necessarily that we have, but I mean, I want all the resources I can collect and use. I think it's going to come down to effort on our part to actually codify this in curriculum and directly teach it to kids. We're finding, expanding a little bit on what Monique pointed out, we're finding, especially at the elementary levels, students are coming to school and they're using words like the N-word, or mostly hearing the N-word right now, at the lower grades in particular, and we believe not recognizing how hurtful the word is. It's something they hear at home, it's something they hear among relatives.
In movies, social media, it's tossed
and
around.
via the media, and then they come and they use the word. In fact, one second grader told Miss Maiden, happens to be a woman of color, outright crying, so remorseful. I didn't know what the word meant. I just wanted to try to use it because I hear it all the time. I think these kids need to learn, our kids need to learn that words hurt and why they hurt, what the history is.
History, yeah.
The history,
yeah.
yeah.
And I think you're right, and it should include a range of those profane words we hear, unfortunately, too often.
I don't know how easy it is to sort of synthesize that, because that's not what the American Council on Diversity does, but
But it's pointing out that that's
it's also part of our conversation was it's also part of responsive classroom.
right.
It's brought into morning meetings. It's discussed.
Oh,
it's
okay.
definitely part of what we already have in place.
Oh, good.
So
Okay.
I'm almost 100% positive that these discussions are beginning in the classrooms, Bartle at the very least, and actually Irving's using responsive classroom also. So they are starting, And then to maybe highlight, we really want to hear more of these discussions. We really want to. More prominent.
I have to give the board credit. I recall last year in closed session, when we were reviewing a discipline report, the board expressing concern about the greater frequency of these words being used and being very upset about it. And, so now we're going to heed your cue and try to work on it more explicitly.
Well, thank you. I think we're all grateful for that. Something else I was going to say. I can't remember what it was. All right, moving on. Oh, the Holocaust curriculum, that is currently in place at the middle school, right?
Correct.
I mean, that seems like you had posted some stuff online on Facebook with some of the poems that students were writing, and that just seems like a wonderful, well, from what the little I saw, a wonderful curriculum. Is any aspect of that taught in the high school or in our other buildings?
Yes, in the U.S. history curricula.
Okay.
I know that some of our literature is focused on that. In fact, my daughter now is reading a book by Elie Wiesel, not Knight. But I'd love to see us scale up what Sea Change from Brookdale is doing at the high school level. Right now, they're only focusing on middle school. But we're looking at this as a long-term partnership, so we could very well scale it up.
Because we do occasionally see anti-Jewish bias, and it would be great to know that some component of education on that is happening as early as Irving.
I agree.
I realize it's a big ask, but we do want the community to know that we are concerned about all of these things. And the middle school curriculum looks just great. I can't imagine students not being touched by that. And
we have Miss Paxton leading that work, and she's a social worker in training.
Oh, that's
so she's
right.
lending a therapeutic support piece to that too.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Any other comments about equity and excellence? All right. Oh, let me turn to Michelle's agenda here. Public comment. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. Board policies 164 and 167 establish and regulate the right of the public to participate in public meetings. There is nobody here except those employed by the board. The next item is President's Report. I do not have a President's Report. We do have some possible things to bring up at our next meeting, but it's 9:30 already. Old business. Nope. Okay. New business. Anyone?
Yes, I have two items. The first is a group that I met over at the conference in Atlantic City. It's a company called Entourage Yearbooks. They're based in Princeton Junction, so it's a local company, and they do work nationwide, but it's a much, much smaller company than the current Jostens that we use, which is as faceless as I've seen. And so I was super excited to meet these guys. They were hungry for the business, and they were willing to do some things that I thought were above and beyond. Certainly not anything Jostens would offer us. So I came back with a folder full of information for Dr. Taylor, and I gave it to him. Apparently, Bartle already uses Entourage for their yearbooks, so we already have a contact. Again, they're in Princeton Junction. One of the things they offered that I thought was phenomenal was student field trips to tour their facility, where they would show them how they make their yearbooks. Yeah, so for all ages, for all school grades. Also, they offer a school advisor conference free of charge every single year for yearbook advisors of different levels. So it's a 3-day conference that's completely free. For example, their 2017 conference was focused on incorporation and inclusion. I thought that was fantastic. And that's the kind of thing that we try very hard to do on the board level, at every level. But for a yearbook advisor to have the 3 days of immersive instruction on how to incorporate and include and not have the same click appear on every single page kind of thing, because it's easy, it's very easy. You have the kids who are involved and the kids who are not involved. It's hard to get everyone included. So just the idea that they had that as their focus for that year's conference, I thought was pretty impressive. So there's 2 different benefits that we would receive free of charge, a tour as well as the advisor conference. Also, another thing that they offer is a competition. It's a national competition in which they ask for students to write essays, in the effort to become journalists and photojournalists. And they had, they had a grand prize where they would, post that up on their page, so you could be a published author, to win this prize. Some of the topics that they had for their essay contest were pretty great. There were nice progressive educational topics, things that get people talking. And the idea that we would have the advisor meet personally with someone right there in Princeton Junction, I thought that was wonderful. But they also have electronic tools and an app to make it easy for the advisor and the students to upload photography and other things for the yearbook. So I was amped about meeting. His name is Will Coney, and he was super enthusiastic, and so I was hoping that the advisors from the other schools would want to meet with him. Most important of all, he was promising that we were going to be saving a ton of money. So because they are a young, hungry business, they are trying so hard to get some of the business away from Jostens, who has just got a stranglehold, like frankly a monopoly. Being that we're a small school district, I thought it was a perfect fit, and we're also a New Jersey school district. They're a New Jersey-based company. And most of their conferences, by the way, are held in the Princeton area, so it wouldn't be difficult for us to attend and take that benefit easily. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that was on the table. Dr. Taylor said that he had asked the other leadership involved in yearbooks. They were not interested in changing, but I don't know how much of a sell they were given. I know for sure they did not meet with Mr. Coney. If they did, they probably would have run a 5K with him. He was super energetic. And, so I was disappointed. So I wanted to make sure that the board was aware that that was something that we could take advantage of, and that I was hoping that we could all kind of encourage our school principals to speak with the Bartle leadership who uses Entourage to see if they could give a little bit of a testimonial.
Do we know what the timing is for the, it's too late for this year, I'm guessing.
Too late for this year, yes.
Yeah. So what's the...
But they do, unfortunately, he emailed me in November.
Mm-hmm.
I met with him in October, late October. He emailed me in November, and this kind of checking in constantly has been going on for a while. But I'm a board member. I can't do anything about that. Right. So, not to throw Scott under the bus, but, we're all busy. So I just wanted to maybe push the envelope a bit, bringing it up in new business.
Why don't I reach out to him, get a sense of those things that he shared with you, and go from there. I'll reach out to him. I think I have his email. We've been emailing each other back and forth, so I'll email him tonight.
I would love for us to make sure that there's a personal, in-person meeting set up between him and the other principals, because I really feel that Jostens would never bother doing that. Just that alone, the fact that he's willing to come to the school and meet with them would be impressive. And I think that, he had a lot to offer, and I would love to have, local businesses supported with our tax dollars. I think that's another good feature.
I'm not opposed, I don't think I'm opposed to having him meet with the principals, but let me just sit on that, and I promise to follow up. FYI?
Sure,
Soon?
okay.
Quick?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks to you both.
One other item was the National Honor Society was something that we discussed at the conference as well. And there were a number of different schools that chose a different type of honor society. National Honor Society has certain standards and whatnot, but it is not something that is gaining traction nationally. I think a lot of schools, and they're nodding, a lot of schools are kind of not impressed with your National Honor Society. They just don't, frankly, think it's a big...
It's not even on many college apps anymore. It's not an option.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to know. I mean, that was my assumption, and this presentation that we were given kind of alluded to that. So they were talking about other types of organizations that I'm sure the Equity and Excellence Committee could, help me research how to better vet our most successful students in all areas, athletics, academics, the arts, etc. So my proposal in New Business is to eliminate National Honor Society entirely. I also feel that there is a lot of, I'm going to say, discrimination in terms of the National Honor Society lists that we get every single year. There's usually a full list of white children who come from very comfortable families.
Is that true?
Yes. Compared to our student body. Last year, for example, it was, I think, 20 in total. There was one child of mixed race. So I do feel that there is an inequity component that is a very deep concern of mine. So I'd like us all to maybe research, do a little thinking about that.
Michelle, do you have materials from the seminar you attended?
I do. I can share them.
Could you share them? And maybe that should be brought up in Equity and Excellence and in curriculum?
I would love
to sort
that.
of as a mechanism for getting started with this?
Okay.
Well,
Sounds good.
I'm just wondering.
I mean, I'm not saying we're going to do it, but let's,
Right, right. Not that
research.
we're necessarily going to do it, but is the right approach to eliminate it in the school, or to change our approach to it in the school so that we have more
I have
inclusion?
I have concerns about the nature of the standards for National Honor Society. I have concerns about the way in which students are chosen for it. And I also have concerns in a personnel sense about how things are managed.
Which may be an integral part of the program. You know, it's possible that it's really difficult with this
Do you
particular
want me to
model.
put it on the March 11th agenda?
That would be wonderful, yeah. And I will absolutely share all the information that I had gained at the conference, for sure.
And so equity and curriculum will at least engage in some discussion of that?
Yeah, we can put that on our next agenda. And I just don't think there's much flexibility, I don't think, right, in terms of if we wanted to open up or change in some way the qualifications, or I don't think there's room to do that.
It would have to be like a different kind of honor society.
Well, right.
Not coordinated with the National Honor Society of America or whatever
Yeah, I
the
think
program is.
I mean, in answer to Rob's question, I think that is the most important thing to know.
Yeah.
So there would still be an honor society. It just would not necessarily be part of that particular program. But this is a long process.
Absolutely.
So we'll get started talking about it, looking at it, seeing what these other schools are proposing. It's great when other schools have been starting to do this. We like to have models. So
Oh yeah, we are not reinventing the wheel on this one for
yeah,
sure.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love going to the conference. This is one of the reasons why.
I'm going to try to go this year. I really want to. All right. Any comments on new business or new business? Additional new business? No? All right. Public comment. There is nobody here not employed by us, but I will read the intro anyway. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. Board policies 164 and 167 establish and regulate the right of the public to participate in public meetings. We're disappointed to see we have no public commenters, although who would really want to be here at 9:30?
We do.
We do. I'd like to move to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, guys. This is the first time you've seen the board meeting from start to finish, isn't it?
I think it's the second.
Second. Are you counting? God, I'm gonna get home before 10. This is great.
Just being settled away. Oh gosh, a little cracking noise.